Where does your favorite NFL team's offense rank going into the 2020 NFL season? In this video, I rank the worst NFL offense to the best NFL offense, giving you my rankings for every NFL offense going into the 2020 season. And the one thing that I learned from this exercise is that there are a lot of great offenses in the NFL entering the 2020 season. There are a lot of talented receivers, running backs, tight ends, good offensive linemen, and quarterbacks. So this was a really difficult list to make, probably more difficult than the defensive rankings. So just keep that in mind. I like aspects of every NFL offense right now. I don't absolutely hate any of these offenses. These are just my rankings. Before I give you those rankings, make sure that you do spike the like button. Subscribe to The Bottom Line View for more NFL rankings just like this, and comment below your opinion on my rankings. What do you think? Do you think I'm right, correct? Do you agree with my rankings, or do you disagree? Let me know the reason you disagree in the comment section below. Remember, I like all of these offenses. I just like some of them a little bit more than others. One thing to note before I do give you these rankings is I did come up with a criteria, a formula of sorts to take out and strip out any bias that I have towards a player or towards a team or offense. I did grade on a scale. So the quarterback position, I graded every team out of a 10. The wide receiver, running back, and tight end positions, I graded out of a 5. The offensive line, I graded out of a 7. And then for the scheme, which is an added category that I think goes overlooked, so the offensive coordinators, the offensive scheme, the play design, just the creativity of an overall offense, I graded out of an 8. So those are the important factors that I believe make up a great offense, different positions, different elements that come together to create a chemistry of great offensive football. And that's the grade scale that I utilized to give you these rankings. Just wanted to give you a heads up before we dive into the rankings. The worst offense in the NFL entering the 2020 season, in my opinion, is the Washington football team. Starting with their quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, I just don't see a lot of talent to get excited about on Washington. Outside of scary Terry McLaurin, I don't see any scary playmakers, scary elements of this offense that keep a defensive coordinator up at night to prepare for and to scheme for. Sure, scary Terry is scary. He's fast. I think he's going to be a great receiver in this league, and he is their bona fide #1 receiver and playmaker in this offense by a mile. Outside of that, I mean, Haskins is not exciting at the quarterback position. I understand he had a rough rookie season and people are excited about him and want to give him a chance. I just don't know how much potential he really has. I think he has a strong arm. I'm giving the guy credit for working hard this offseason to get ready for year 2 and to try and prove himself. Can this guy prove himself with lackluster talent around him? I mean, Trey Quinn receiver, Kelvin Harmon, who was drafted in like the 6th round. This offensive line is okay, probably better run blocking wise than pass blocking wise. The running game has been there in moments, in spurts, but Darius Geis has not been able to stay healthy and be on the field, although I wish him the best of luck because I think he has a ton of talent. Adrian Peterson, I think he played in the 30s. Their tight end position doesn't exist. So to me, I just don't see the hype with this offense whatsoever. I think for sure it is the least talented in the league. The second worst offense entering the 2020 season, in my opinion, is the Chicago Bears. And I understand that Bears fans feel like I've been giving this team a rough time and I have not been fairly grading them. But this is honestly just how I feel about the team, specifically the offense. I think the offense is just not good. Simply not great. Starts with the quarterback position that I think is kind of up in the air. Is it Mitchell Trubisky? Is it Nick Foles? I think Nick Foles gives this team a better chance to win. It's as simple as that. Trubisky is too inaccurate. I think he is just simply not smart enough to diagnose defenses, go through reads at a fast enough pace. Sure, he has the legs, mobility to make plays and extend it that Foles doesn't have, but Foles, he's going to get the ball out of his hands. He's going to be in a rhythm. He is probably a more accurate passer, and he can still make those throws down the field. So he was rough in Jacksonville. I think he could be a little better in Chicago because he's more familiar with the staff here. He knows the coaches, and I do believe that Foles is probably the better way to go at quarterback. Running back position, they couldn't run the ball to save their lives last year. Whether it was Montgomery, Cohen, didn't matter. It could have been Jim Brown. I mean, this team, they were going backwards consistently. I think Matt Nagy is kind of an overrated play caller. He just doesn't have this really any sequence, rhythm, or reason to his play calls. It just seems like trick play here, trick play there, fancy play for no reason. Like, I don't really see the reason in his play calls. I don't see the rhythm from this offense. Maybe that is just Trubisky. I don't know. You'll have Foles this year, so we'll see. The wide receiver position, Allen Robinson is great. I think he's definitely a top 15 receiver in this league. But outside of him, I think Anthony Miller has some promise, especially as an inside slot guy, but I don't see much else past that. Cordell Patterson is kind of like a trick gimmick guy. You know, maybe Riley Ridley could step up. Ted Ginn, I believe they signed as a downfield stretcher. The offensive line is very just below average. They couldn't run block like I stated, and pass blocking wise, it's not much better. They do have a couple good players in there, Whitehair, Daniels, I like those two, but outside of that, nothing fantastic. And this team, I mean, the running joke is that they have 400 tight ends. I think they could run a 10 tight end set, but none of them are very good. So to me, Chicago, their offense, they don't have a lot of big-time threats. Their running game is probably one of the worst in the league, and their passing game is probably one of the worst in the league. I just don't see how that equates to a good offense. At number 30 is the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, this is an offense that I thought actually would be higher on my list. Surprisingly, Miami did make a move in terms of offensive coordinator. At the end of last season, I thought offensively they were playing very well. Now, Chan Gailey will be calling the plays. He is the offensive coordinator. He has experience with Fitzpatrick, and that's kind of where I'm intrigued about this offense. How does it change? How does it get better? Maybe it gets worse in some areas. We'll have to find out, but definitely there is some chemistry between quarterback and coordinator, at least for Fitzpatrick's sake. The offensive line, I still feel needs a lot of work. They did add a couple pieces, like Ted Karras at center, Eric Flowers at guard. Two decent pieces, but not upper echelon players. Wide receiver Devontae Parker, to me, has become a number one receiver, but we need to see consistency out of him going forward, because last year was kind of his one breakout season when the rest of the seasons were kind of below average or mediocre at best. Allen Hurns, he's coming back from injury. Albert Wilson is kind of a sneaky, underrated player. I think he could thrive in the slot there. Preston Williams as well is a player that got injured last year, but up until the point that, you know, he was balling early in that season. So maybe they do have a nice number one, number two, depending on how he comes back from injury. Jakeem Grant is a speedy guy that they need to get the ball more. Running back wise, talking about speed, Matt Breida is one of the fastest players in the NFL, and he'll definitely help the explosiveness of this offense. And Jordan Howard is a steady back as well. And Mike Gesicki at tight end, he's a move tight end. He could catch the ball well, run nice routes, line him up in the slot a lot, which is basically where he played the majority of his snaps last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they were in the top 20 in terms of passing the ball this year, even with the unreliable quarterback play that Fitzpatrick or a rookie gives you. Depends on the offensive line for the entirety of the offense. Like, will they be able to consistently run the ball? I'm not sure. I'm not sold. And then in terms of big plays, when you really need to be able to hold back top pass rushers, I just don't know if they have it, and I do need to see if this passing game comes up with a secondary weapon outside of Parker, but I do like aspects of this offense. It just so happens that there's better offenses out there. At number 29, the New York Jets offense. The third season of Sam Darnold is here. The second season of Adam Gase. there are promising aspects to this offense. Le'Veon Bell getting the rust off of him. Of course, Darnold and Gase coming together for another offseason and full season. We'll have to see how Darnold takes that next step forward, because it seemed to be, for many people, a prove-it season for young Sam Darnold, even though I think he's like 23 or 24. So it's pretty wild, but expectations in the NFL when you're a top pick in the first round. The offensive line is better, I believe. I like some of the additions they made. Connor McGovern from Denver at center. They had a big first-round pick in Becton at left tackle. I love that selection. The wide receiver position is very sketchy. I think it has to be one of the worst in the league. I understand bringing in Denzel Mims. Hopefully he turns out to be something. They let go of Robbie Anderson. They brought in Brashad Perryman. I think a little bit of a downgrade there, but not too much. Similar type of player, stretch the field with speed. And Jamison Crowder is the #1 target getter in this offense. He's a very productive and underrated slot receiver. Le'Veon Bell, his performance along with the offensive line could change the way that I'm looking at this offense. And if Sam Darnold can take a major step in year 3, I just don't know if he really can with these receivers. Like, the receivers are lackluster. There's no way around it. The tight ends are interesting, right? Griffin, Herndon, they showed flashes last year and in the past. We'll see what Gase can do this year. I'm not an absolute hater on Adam Gase like some others, so I'm intrigued. I just don't see the talent right now. A lot is going to have to happen for this offense to be really good. The number 28 offense in the NFL, the Jacksonville Jags. Gardner Minshew mania. I know that there are some people that really believe in Minshew, and as you can tell, I'm not exactly in that camp, although I will give the guy a chance. He showed me some promise last year, and definitely as a rookie was fairly impressive in moments, so I'm willing to give the guy an opportunity in year 2 to make some plays and ball out, and maybe he can prove me wrong. From the Jags skill position standpoint, I don't think they're that awful. I think when people look at the Jags, they assume they don't really have a ton of offensive talent around the quarterback position. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I actually think the worst aspect of this offense is probably the offensive line. Like, they've just been lackluster since that 17 season where they were able to overpower and run over people with Leonard Fournette. But, I mean, Cam Robinson hasn't worked out. We'll see what Jawan Taylor can do. The interior has a couple guys. Linder, Norwell are pretty good players. But I just feel like the inconsistency of the offensive line, especially with Doug Marrone, who's an offensive line guy, is concerning. Now, the wide receiver position, I really like DJ Chark. I think he can be a top 15, top 10 receiver in this league. Year 2, big year for him. I think even more so, he's going to ball out. And then you look at the number 2, number 3, the depth of the receiver position. D.D. Westbrook, I've always liked. I think he's a solid number 2 receiver in this league. And then you have a guy like Chris Conley, who's operated in offenses as the number 3 throughout his career and has thrived for the most part. And even some depth there with Keelan Cole, who I like as a speedy, good route running number 4, who could probably step in and be a lot of teams' number 3. So yeah, the Jags don't really have any big names at receiver, but I actually think they are a pretty good group and probably in the middle of the league. If a guy like Westbrook, Connolly, or Cole could step up to be a legitimate number 2, an upper echelon number 2, then now we're talking about something interesting here for Jacksonville. Tyler Eifert, I think, is an upgrade to the tight end position. Leonard Fournette, I've never been the biggest fan of. He had his moments early in his career, but his one-dimensional game is just something that's not exactly exciting. He's not the most efficient running back in the league, but he certainly offers a different dimension from a power skill set. If the offensive line can play better, they can start to run the ball better, and then Minshew looks a lot better in the process, playing off more play action and in better situations. I think the play calling and offensive scheme needs to be better this year for them to improve, but last year they actually were sneaky okay, so we'll see if they can do that this year. At number 27, the Los Angeles Chargers. A big change this offseason took place for the Chargers. The quarterback position. Totally different. Phillip Rivers has been this team's quarterback since 2006, And even when this team wasn't so great, they still had a fairly productive offense with Phillip Rivers at the helm. And now this year, it appears that it's going to be Tyrod Taylor and possibly Justin Herbert. Although with the way this offseason is, it seems less and less likely that he'll be playing at least early on in the season. This team did go through some other changes. Melvin Gordon left through free agency. They did upgrade their offensive line, in my opinion, bringing in a guy like Brian Bulaga, Trey Turner into the mix, two good players at their positions. Hunter Henry, stay healthy, bro. The wide receiver position, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, really dynamic duo there. Route runner in Keenan Allen and a great contested catch guy in Mike Williams. That's going to be interesting to see how that meshes with a guy like Tyrod Taylor. And I'm very intrigued to see how their offensive scheme changes because Anthony Lynn, he did have Tyrod in Buffalo. They did some interesting and creative things there. But I'm just not sold on Tyrod at this point in his career. I think he was a better player in Buffalo. What we saw in Cleveland was disappointing. I just don't know if he is a starting quarterback right now in the NFL. So that definitely hurts them. And I'm unfamiliar with what they're going to do offensively scheme-wise. That also hurts them. So improvement on offensive line, probably weaker in the weapons department. I think this offense is just going to be reliant on their defense to win games. They're going to have to be in defensive type of games to win, and I think that is going to dictate how the offense plays. A lot of running the ball, maybe some play action, use Tyrod's legs. I think that's going to hurt the production of the pass catchers, but we'll see. Maybe it can work with Anthony Lynn and Tyrod Taylor once again in the NFL. At number 26, the Cincinnati Bengals offense. Cincinnati has their new quarterback, Joe Burrow, the face of the franchise. The question is, can the face of the franchise work with their coach? Work within this offensive scheme that Zach Taylor has brought to Cincinnati? A heavy three-receiver reliant, very Sean McVay-esque offense. And will Zach Taylor learn from his mistakes in season 1 and change his offensive scheme in season 2? A lot of questions regarding Cincinnati's scheme. The offensive line is the other question. The offensive line just was terrible last year. I think many would argue if it wasn't the worst, it was probably the second, third worst. It was in the bottom of the league either way. Joe Mixon, he made his way through a lot of just no holes to be had. And I give him a ton of credit for that. And I think he's one of the few running backs that has the vision, the quickness, the stop-start ability to be able to function behind a less than mediocre offensive line. Giovanni Bernard is still the backup there, still capable backup. Wide receiver-wise, they might be one of the best teams in football. If AJ Green is back and healthy and AJ Green, then man, this receiver group can be really dynamic with Tyler Boyd in the slot, one of the better slot receivers in the game. Another guy that's been often injured, John Ross, who's one of the fastest receivers and showed last year he could be a big play threat within an offense. T. Higgins was drafted in the second round as probably the best contested catch guy in the draft. Auden Tate showed he could play in the NFL. So they have a lot of weapons for Burrow to work with. The one area they don't really have is the tight end position. Complete uncertainty. Don't know how much they're going to use that position. Maybe they go to a lot of receiver sets. 4 receiver, 5 receiver sets. 3 receiver sets very often, probably their base personnel. But we'll have to see how Burrow looks in year 1. Is he Andrew Luck in year 1? Does he look like Troy Aikman in year 1? Or somewhere in the middle? We'll have to see with the Bengals. At number 25, the Carolina Panthers. This will be the first season in a very long time that the Panthers have not started the season with Cam Newton at the helm as their go-to single caller. It will now be Teddy Two Gloves, Teddy Bridgewater. And Teddy Bridgewater is a very different quarterback from Cam Newton. So Panther fans, prepare for a very different offense. And that's exactly what Joe Brady, Matt Rule, and this new Panther staff are looking to bring to Carolina. It's going to be a lot like what they had at LSU in terms of Joe Brady. This is a very Sean Payton-esque offense. That's basically the staples and the core of the offensive philosophy is very much built upon the Saints and Sean Payton and what they do. So when you play the Saints, you're going to see a lot of similar concepts and plays. Receiver-wise, this receiver group I think is a 5-star receiver group. It's one of the best in the game. DJ Moore, breakout year in 2019, dynamic with the ball in his hands. Curtis Samuel, same thing, great speed. Look for a breakout season this year. And Robbie Anderson is probably one of the best deep receivers in the game that they also added to this group of receivers. The tight end position, no more Greg Olsen. Ian Thomas is going to get the call. We'll see if he can rise to the occasion. That's more big shoes to fill in Carolina. The offensive line, I think it's actually not too bad. When you look at the offensive line in Carolina, they have a strong tackle position with Okung, as long as he's healthy, and Taylor Moton on the other side. And then you look inside, and that's probably where the uncertainty is, but at least you have Matt Paredes at center, who I think is probably one of the 10 best centers in the game. And of course, Christian McCaffrey, where everything flows through Christian McCaffrey. The passing game, the running game, he is the best player on this team. And the offense, it's going to operate through him. So Teddy Bridgewater may be the quarterback, but McCaffrey is their main piece. Bridgewater just needs to be efficient, and hopefully this offensive scheme is what we're expecting it to be in the NFL. Of course, I don't really know what it's going to look like, so I can't rate it very highly. But I think it could be promising because the Panthers do have the weapons for this offense to operate at a high level. At number 24, the New York G-Men, the New York Giants offense, one that I'm super excited to watch in 2020 because I think there's a lot of potential within their young quarterback, Daniel Jones. I think his ability to make plays with both his arm and his legs, super intriguing to me, as well as just him coming up last year with some big time throws that I thought were extremely impressive. You of course have my favorite running back in the league and who I believe is the best, most dynamic running back in the game, and that is Saquon Barkley. I think when it comes to running backs creating big plays on the ground, there are none better than Saquon, who also features a great set of hands out of the backfield. Sterling Shepard is probably one of the receivers a lot of people, too many people in my opinion, are sleeping on going into 2020. I think he's going to be a fantastic, and to me, the number one option in the receiving game for Daniel Jones. I think a lot of people are buying stock in Darius Slayton. I'm not sure I'm exactly buying him as a pure number one, but I think in terms of a big play threat for this offense, he's the guy. And then Golden Tate, a reliable receiver, veteran, understands offensive football and how to gain yards after the catch. Speaking of yards after the catch, Evan Ingram is one of the best at the tight end position in that regard. The question Giants fans have is the offensive line. You know, is it going to take that next step? And we saw with Daniel Jones, just alone moving from Eli Manning, who's not very mobile, it was a little bit better. But I think adding a first-round top 5 pick at right tackle for now in Thomas is going to be huge for them. And that kind of is going to bring together the rest of the line. I think Kevin Zeitler is already a really good guard. I think Nate Solder is a fine left tackle. He's had his ups and downs with New York, but I think when you piece together a 5-man line that's much better, that fifth piece sometimes can just bring together the rest of the line. And I already like Will Hernandez as kind of a road grader, run behind me, I'll run people over type of guard. The question remains, what does Jason Garrett's offense look like in New York? Man, it's gonna be very interesting to see Giants fans and the relationship that they have with Jason Garrett. And if he struggles or if he thrives, there's going to be a chip on his shoulder. And we know that he's been a good offensive coach in the past. Bring it back. Can he gain some of that old magic? Or is he just that same lackluster head coach we've seen over the last couple of years? At number 23, the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams offense has probably been one of the better ones over the past 3 seasons with Sean McVay calling plays and scheming up offense for this team. Jared Goff has been one of the more productive passers in the league, although I would argue production does not match greatness or how well he has played. I will say that much. The offensive line, I think, is pretty bad. I thought it was good in 2018 and took a drastic dip in 2019. The tackles just weren't the same. The guard and center play was already below mediocre, and losing Roger Saffold was a massive loss for this offensive line. The wide receiver position will be without Brandon Cooks. They'll be replacing him with maybe Van Jefferson. Josh Reynolds, more snaps from possibly Everett at tight end or Higbee at tight end, either one, maybe more 2 tight end sets in general. What is their scheme looking like now? Cooks is gone. They traded him. So they had an idea in mind here that, okay, we're going to shift our offensive philosophy. Maybe that means running the ball more. Maybe that means different formation usage. Whatever it is, Sean McVay has a plan in mind, and I believe in that plan. The thing I don't believe in is I don't think the talent is there the way it used to be. Of course, you're without a regular 1,000-yard receiver in Brandon Cooks. The strength on the offensive line is no longer there. Jared Goff is probably not an upper echelon quarterback in this league, although he can be average. And the running back position, there's no Todd Gurley there anymore, especially MVP Todd Gurley. So this offense just lacks the same amount of talent it used to have. Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, very good players. I think Higbee's going to have a breakout year. So there's pluses and positives to this, but just don't expect the same productivity that we saw the last few years from LA. At number 22, the Buffalo Bills offense. Before I ranked them and before I went through the formula, I would have thought would have been higher on this list just because of my personal feelings about the players. Like, I like Josh Allen quite a bit. I think that the receivers are very dynamic, and I think they have a great complement within Diggs, Beasley, Brown. All their skill sets are great complements to each other. Their running backs are fine. I think what they do within this Dayball, New England-esque offensive scheme, Singletary catching the ball out of the backfield, Moss being more that power back, makes sense to me, and I think Dawson Knox is a tight end on the rise. But when you really formulate it and go through the process of grading their positions, I feel like there's a lot of average on this roster outside of the receiver position. I think Josh Allen is the one that's going to determine how great the offense is. If Josh Allen goes from being, like, in my opinion, the 16th or 15th best quarterback to being like in the top 10, then this offense will likely be in the top 10. Feel like this offense as a whole has been inconsistent. I think Stephon Diggs added to the mix will add more consistency to it because he's a number 1 target. That will add to the downfield passing attack, opening up underneath for Cole Beasley. John Brown to work as a number 2 instead of number 1, Knox, and so on. And the running game was Singletary there for the whole year. Moss, I think, is underrated, promising. The offensive line, I think, is weaker than people realize, though. I think people go in and thinking this offensive line is really good when it really isn't. I think Allen escapes a lot of pressure, a lot of blitzes. He's often under duress, and I think he doesn't get credit enough for that. So I think the Bills are a fine offense with big-time potential right now. It's just before the season has started, it's tough to grade the players better than where I have them. At number 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. I think you could argue without Big Ben Roethlisberger in 2019, this offense was like the worst in the league, or at least in the bottom 3. I would at least say so. And with Big Ben, I think they at least rise 10 spots in that regard. I have them here at 21. And the reason being is I don't think they're quite going to be people looking at 2018 as a metric. Doesn't make sense to me because they're without one of the 10 best receivers in NFL history in Antonio Brown. I don't care what you think of him off the field. The guy on the field is a game changer. He changes the way defenses look at you, and he changes the way that coordinators game plan for you. They're not going to be 2018. I don't care. Big Ben could be the same quarterback that he was after the injury, and they still wouldn't be that good because Antonio Brown's not there. That's what I'm saying. Plus, the offensive line, I don't think, is as good as it was. They did have one of their guards retire. They're trying to replace that, but I think they're getting older. I think their better days are behind them, their peak being 2016, 2017, but they're still a good line. They're still top 10, I would say. So the Steelers, I think, will be a different offense this year. I actually don't think they're going to be throwing the ball as much. I don't think they're going to be as high octane as they were. I think they're going to go to old school Steeler football. I think they're going to go to Big Ben early in his career. Let's run the ball. Let's go for shots down the field. And then occasionally they'll spread you out with 5 wide like they used to with Big Ben, and he loves those 5 wide sets. But I just don't think they have the weapons to be that high passing attack now with Big Ben. And I think you saw that in Game 1 and Game 2 of last season when Ben played. Now, Juju, I think, should get back to his normal self. I think he's still overrated, but I think he is a number 1 receiver. Then you look at Deontay Johnson, who I think could be eventually better than Juju, and I think this year he's going to break out. James Washington is a good kind of one-trick pony receiver. Go down the field, catch the ball, big play. Chase Claypool will be an interesting weapon in year 1, just a freak athletically. The tight end position is the one I'm intrigued with most because Eric Ebron was brought in this offseason in free agency, and he's a big-time red zone weapon that I think Ben will utilize quite a bit. I wouldn't be shocked if he was near 8 to 10 touchdowns. Running back position, not a huge fan of. I think Connor can get it done, but he's nothing special. So I think they're just kind of average in most departments, but I think if their scheme goes back to old school Steeler football, they rely on their defense, they'll be a good team. I just don't think it will be the way that they've been an electrifying offense with the killer bees and with AB and Bell the way that they used to be. At number 20, I have the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings offense, I believe in 2020, won't be quite as efficient as it was in 2019. Big reason for that, Stephon Diggs is gone. Stephon Diggs is easily one of the game's best deep receivers and one of the game's best route runners. And when you lose a player like that, where that attention is away from that receiver, now on everyone else, like Adam Thielen, for example, it's going to hurt the overall production of your passing game. Now, the good thing for the Vikings is, 1, the headache is gone, but 2, they're not overly reliant on the passing game in terms of success on offense. They love to run the ball. They run the ball more than anyone else, and when they run it, they love to play action off of it. And Kirk Cousins is very good in that regard, very accurate quarterback, smart quarterback. I think Adam Thielen is going to have a big season this year. I think he's going to see a lot of targets this year, and I think he is going to get back on track to being what he was just 2 seasons ago. When you look at the rest of the playmakers around him, Justin Jefferson's going to be counted on big time in his rookie season as the number 2. But good thing for them, they brought in a guy like Tajay Sharp, probably the addition on this team that nobody really talks about. But I think this guy in Tennessee was really underrated and now will probably play a bigger role on Minnesota as likely their number 3. And if not, Johnson can always fill in there, but he's a number 4. So although they don't have the Diggs anymore, I feel like they kind of have better depth by bringing in Sharp into the mix, because this team all the time would have 2 really good receivers and then the third guy would be like, he stinks. But now they have 4 that I feel decently confident in. The offensive line, I think, is a little bit worse. Maybe their young guys get better and improve. And when it came to just straight up pass blocking, they were not a good line last year as it was. They, from a traditional drop back passing game standpoint, when you need a play on 3rd and long, they're just not a very good offense from that standpoint because their offensive line can't hold up in those situations as well. But what they do with Gary Kubiak within this offense, within this scheme, they do at a high level. But what they don't do well, it kind of hurts them. It hinders them. And the Dalvin Cook situation, it's hanging over their head. We'll have to see what happens with that. The tight end position is solid for them. Irv Smith, if he can take a step forward, that's a weapon that they can count on now more with Diggs gone. I think the biggest question for me is, who's the guy going down the field? Who's the guy creating the big play? Don't quite know that yet, but we'll have to find out this year. The Vikings, I have at number 20. At number 19, I have the Denver Broncos. This might be a slight surprise to some people, and others might be saying, why is Denver so low at 19? 19 for Denver. I feel like this is the perfect spot right now because they have a lot of potential, but they have so many young players that it's very difficult to grasp what this offense is going to be this year. The first year with Drew Lock being the full-time starter. I believe he's going to be the starter for a long time because I think he's going to be good. It's just difficult to understand, okay, how good is KJ Hamler? He was drafted in the 2nd round. Is Jerry Jeudy the best route runner in the draft? Or is he a bust? Like, we really don't know that yet. Although I have my opinion on the players. I think Judy's going to be a good player. I think Hamler's going to have a role in the offense. And I already know Cortland Sutton is good. I think Melvin Gordon is going to be back to his normal self like he was a couple years ago in LA. I think he's going to be productive 1,000-yard back. I think Phillip Lindsay's going to be productive. I like the pieces of this offense. I think Mike Munchak as the offensive line coach is huge for them. I love the new offensive coordinator and Pat Shurmur because I think when he's an offensive coordinator, he's fantastic. Head coach, not so much. But I think Luck's going to be good. I think he's going to be productive, and I don't think he's going to have to carry the team fantastic for them to be productive on offense. I think it's going to be similar to like Kirk Cousins or Baker Mayfield. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I think you're going to see a lot of play action. I think you're going to see some screen game, but they're going to really run the ball with these two running backs. There's a reason they signed Gordon. There's a reason they have Lindsey, and I think they like both of these guys. They're going to want to run it, and then when they have man coverage on the outside, I think guys like Jerry Jeudy are going to win with his crisp route running. And then a guy like Sutton, you can count on a one-on-one situation to come down with the ball. Not to mention Noah Fant's fantastic speed. I think he's an up-and-coming tight end. So they have a lot of youth, a lot of uncertainty, but also immense potential. Probably more potential and more unknown than any offense in the league. The number 18 offense is the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons offense is one that I kind of feel like we know is going to be productive, at least in one area of the game, and that is the passing game. Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, that combo has been productive since it's entered the NFL when Julio Jones was drafted. Calvin Ridley, I think, is going to have a breakout year and kind of be like this year's Chris Godwin. I think that combo is going to be off the charts spectacular. Outside of that, I have no idea what this offense is or what it's going to be. But at the same time, with Matt Ryan at quarterback, Dirk Cutter is the OC, who I feel he's solid. He's nothing special, but he's not bad either. He's just solid. I think they'll be productive. I just don't think there's a huge ceiling or really a low floor. I just think they're going to be somewhere between the 20th best offense and the 10th best offense, but probably no better than that. So I feel this is a fair grade for them, although I would have thought they would have been higher before I did the formula. I think what hinders them is the offensive line. We don't know. There's unknown here. The young players that they have, Lindstrom, McGarry, we don't know really what they are yet. I think looking at the tight end position now with Hooper gone, Hurst in, don't know about that yet. I'm not the biggest Hurst guy in the world. Running back position, I'm probably more down on Gurley than other people, although I'm starting to rise on him a little bit more. Even past Gurley, though, I don't think he can be an every down back. I don't love the backups. I don't love the depth, and that's maybe concerning issue number one. They don't have any tight end depth. They barely have any receiver depth. I don't know who the third receiver is, and I don't know who the backup running back is, to be honest with you. So this team has upper echelon talent, but they don't have any depth. That's concerning. At number 17, the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts offense is one that I think could take a huge step back in the right direction in 2020 after a down year in 2019. I think Phillip Rivers is the big thing that helps, because remember, 2 seasons ago, with a competent, not just competent, but spectacular quarterback play with Andrew Luck, this was a top 5 offense. I don't think you can argue that. And really not a lot of great weapons around Andrew Luck or this offensive line. And I'm not saying Phillip Rivers is going to be Andrew Luck, but he's closer to Andrew Luck than he is Jacoby Brissett, in my opinion, at least in terms of creating big throws and big plays. Rivers may turn the ball over, and that's what he's been doing in LA, at least for the past season, but he also creates a lot of big plays with his touch, accuracy, timing, and just his pure experience in the NFL. He's just always been a great passer, and he can make those big-time throws, and that's something that Jacoby sorely lacked last year. Now, his arm strength is deteriorated, but that doesn't take away that he is going to sometimes put the ball in places that Jacoby simply couldn't, and he's also going to be a lot more efficient and understand an offense at a much greater grasp than Jacoby ever would with Frank Reich, especially considering their chemistry already from their days with the Chargers. Now, their strength is not their quarterback, though. Their offensive line is their strength. This is the best offensive line in football. They're going to run the ball more than maybe anyone in the league. I think with Jonathan Taylor, they have made that point known. He is going to be awesome. I could see him having an Ezekiel Elliott-esque year this year if they give him the reins from week 1. Beside him, Marlon Mack, who's already like a 1,000-yard rusher. I'm not saying Marlon Mack's special, but he's solid. And that's a good combo on the ground with Nyheim Hines through the air out of the backfield in, let's say, a Danny Woodhead-esque type of way for Phillip Rivers. Now, T.Y. Hilton, I like what I saw early in the year before he was injured in terms of his ability to adapt. He actually became more of an underneath receiver that I think is going to fit Phillip Rivers very well in a Keenan Allen-esque role. And the rookie Pittman is a bigger target who's going to be kind of close to the Vincent Jackson, Floyd, Mike Williams type of receiver that we've seen Rivers operate within the past. Jack Doyle is there at tight end. I'm not so sure about Trey Burton, but they added him as well. Maybe he'd be better in a Reich offense than he was in a Nagy offense. Either way, they're going to run the ball. Rivers will make some throws. I think they're going to be efficient through the passing game with the short passing game, getting easy throws. Screen game will be there, and Rivers will occasionally make the big throw down the field, but not very often. I think this offense is going to be really good because it's efficient and it's effective with great offensive line play, and that's the name of the game for the Colts. At the number 16 spot is the New England Patriots. Patriots offense, probably before they signed number 1, Cam Newton, was probably closer to number 26 than number 16 with Jarrett Stidham, because we really don't know what the quarterback position of Jarrett Stidham was going to be like. And I think with Cam Newton, they're actually maybe better off than they were with Tom Brady. Now hear me out. I think Cam Newton makes their offense better in the running game because he's a guy that can run himself. So that makes defenses pay attention to him. If they run more read option game, that's going to make guys like Sony, White, Burkhead, Damian Harris just better players. I think in terms of the passing game, while Cam isn't as efficient and as accurate as Brady has been in the past, he certainly has the arm Brady has, probably even more so, and he can make more downfield throws, but also Cam can extend the play, which is going to help receivers like N'Keal Harry, and just in general, receivers that didn't have chemistry with Brady now have the chance to mesh with Cam, like Mohamed Sanu. Brady often didn't trust the receivers on New England last year, which hindered the passing game. I don't think that's going to be the case with Cam Newton. And Cam doesn't get enough credit for how smart he is in the passing game, pre-snap, post-snap, and I think his ability with the legs will be there in the red zone, which will help this team score points. Now, the offensive line, I think, is the probably most underrated in the league. When you talk about across the board, Isaiah Wynn, Marcus Cannon at tackle, Tooney and Mason at guard, which is the best guard combo in the league, and at center, David Andrews is back. They'll be able to run the ball from traditional or shotgun or pistol sets, and I think the trickeration and scheme and creativity that McDaniels offers is next level. It's one of the best in the game. Now, the question is, who is a receiver outside of Edelman? Who's the tight end? They did draft 2 this year, so it's probably going to be better than last year. I mean, it can't be worse. And at receiver, Mohamed Sanu, I think, is back and healthy, will be a little bit better, at least with Cam. And Edelman, I think, is going to be his same old self. The big question is N'Keal Harry. Can he step up? Because he had a really bad rookie season. But if he can be any better, if he can just be a competent number 2, then I think this offense takes drastic leaps forward. So I like where I have them placed here. I think it might be high for some people, but understanding that the scheme is top-notch, the quarterback is a playmaker, and that I think they offer some unique things, I think the Patriots offense is actually underrated going into 2020. At number 15, the Green Bay Packers offense with Aaron Rodgers. I think the interesting thing with the Packers is that I almost feel like Matt LaFleur is trying to take the ball out of the hands of his star quarterback, out of his Hall of Fame quarterback, and I don't know if that's exactly the right move. I understand it from a weapons perspective, but also you've been building the roster this way to the point where Aaron Rodgers doesn't have any weapons outside of Devontae Adams in the passing game, so you're forcing yourself to run the ball more than you really should when you have Aaron Rodgers. I was the coach, if I was the GM, I'd be building a team around Aaron Rodgers, not stripping away from Aaron Rodgers. Now, Rodgers is a spectacular downfield passer. He has great accuracy, still has the arm. He can't move the way he used to, but can still move well enough within the pocket, and is extremely cerebral and smart and protects the football. So I would still trust him to be my guy, my playmaker, the way he used to be, because there's arguably nobody better at that. But they just aren't. They're running the ball now. They're looking to be like the Vikings or the Browns. They're looking to be the Titans, and I don't think they need to be. I think it's a mistake. They have one of the best receivers in the game. They have no tight end. Their running back position is very strong. I just don't know if this is the right approach for this quarterback and for this offense. The offensive line's still solid. I think they'll have a strong running game because that's what they want to do and want to be. I just don't know if that's the right approach for Aaron Rodgers. At number 14, the Tennessee Titans offense. This one might surprise you a little bit, but when looking at the statistics, looking at the numbers from a year ago, it's actually pretty obvious, and the Titans should be maybe even higher, but considering that I believe there'll be a little bit of regression from their running game and also regression from the offense as a whole, passing game, deep passing, offensive line lost some talent, I don't think the Titans will be quite as effective as they were down the stretch with Tannehill. They won't have people off guard and defenses off guard the way that they were because they didn't know what the offense was with Tannehill. And the way that they were just able to run it was overpowering and kind of unrepeatable. Like, that's just not going to happen. But the Titans do have a lot to offer. I think Arthur Smith as a play caller is very underrated. I think Tannehill as a quarterback is underrated. What he can do as a playmaker with his legs and his arm is underrated. I think A.J. Brown is going to be a big-time receiver. And the thing with the Titans that I think the reason why I have them over the Packers, over the Patriots, teams like this, is I think the Titans have more explosive ability. You know, guys like Jonnu Smith with great speed at tight end and playmaking ability. Guys like A.J. Brown who can stiff arm you to the ground and run for 70 yards. Or Derrick Henry who can stiff arm you to the ground and run for 80 yards. Like, these kind of players, those teams don't have to me. They have a toughness. They have a grit to them that is impressive. And I think their playmakers are underrated, including guys like Adam Humphries as well, who should probably have a better year this year. Derrick Henry has a lot on his shoulders, though, and he needs to repeat for them to be just as successful as last year. At number 13, the Las Vegas Raiders, John Gruden's Raiders. I think they're an offense that was slept on in 2019. I think people are still sleeping on them. They didn't realize how good of an offense they were last year. They actually were a fairly productive offense, even with limited talent. I know that you look at the depth chart and you say, like, how is this offense that good and responsible for these points? But, like, yeah, they were. And I think a lot of that had to do with fantastic offensive line play. And number two, I think it had to do with John Gruden. I think Gruden is kind of underrated right now. I think he has a really strong scheme in terms of the ability to run the ball and efficient passing. I think a lot of people are saying, you know, Carr doesn't really throw the ball down the field. Yes, he doesn't, but I think Gruden is putting him in positions to not throw the ball down the field. They don't really have receivers to do that. I mean, who is he going to throw it to? I mean, Antonio Brown wasn't there. He didn't like his helmet, so he didn't want to join the team. You know, now they have a legitimate number one receiver possibly in Henry Ruggs, who I'm going to be drafting in every fantasy league because I think he's going to get the ball a lot. Then you look at Josh Jacobs, who's a top 10 running back to me and was one of the probably 5 most productive last year. The offensive line is one of the 5 best in the game. The tight end is one of the 5 best in the game. And I think around Ruggs at receiver, it's interesting. It's not exactly for sure we know what they're going to be, but I mean, Renfrow in the slot could be productive. Tyrell Williams is more suited to be a number 2 than a number 1. They added some rookies in the mix there as well. I think Carr, it's up to him. Like, can he be, when they need to pass the ball, a really good quarterback? Because he was in moments of his career, but I haven't really seen it recently. Like, he's been good when the offensive line, the running game's good, and he can make plays off of that. But when they need to pass the ball and they have no other option, can Carr be that guy? I think that's the one thing that the Raiders are lacking, along with proven receivers. But the scheme, the O-line, the running game, it's all there, the tight end, to be successful and to be one of the 15 best offenses in the game today. At number 12, the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks offense is one that is Russell Wilson or bust. I mean, this offense has one of the worst schemes in the league. I think their offensive line is absolutely dreadful at times. Sometimes good in terms of running the ball. They've shown promise there. But pass blocking wise, they leave Wilson out to dry. And that's why I consistently say, while I believe Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, I think Wilson is the most valuable quarterback in the league. Different conversation there. Running the ball for the Seahawks has been their way of life since Wilson has been drafted. I mean, it's Marshawn Lynch, and now it's Chris Carson in the game. And I think their running back position is strong. They also brought in Carlos Hyde. Rashad Penny's a first-round pick, although he doesn't really seem to be healthy. I think that running game is strong, but it should be more about Wilson. It should be more about these receivers, which, by the way, they have one of the best duos in the league with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, not to mention one of the best, one of the fastest, and most dynamic as well. The tight end position is sneaky good. You know, Greg Olsen was actually productive last year when he played for Carolina, and he's coming in to work with a veteran quarterback like Wilson. I think he'll be productive again as a vet, and Disley is a guy that I think will be the starter for them, but he looked good early on in the season last year, and they still have a guy like Hollister, who is fairly decent for them, even as the third or fourth tight end that they tried to throw out on the field after all the injuries. And this team had a lot of injuries. This offense did, especially at running back and tight end. So I think the Seahawks, they'll score, but it seems like they don't want to score till the second half because they put themselves in a hole. But Russell Wilson is so magical and so awesome that he finds a way to make magic. So I think their ceiling is actually hurt by their scheme and their coaching and their philosophy. But I think they also just have such dynamic playmakers that it makes it hard to ignore. At number 11, the Houston Texans. Just like the Seahawks, I think the Texans are built at their foundation the same way. A playmaking, dynamic magician of a quarterback, Watson, Wilson, with offensive lines that are probably better at run blocking than pass blocking. They have receivers that are very fast, but for some reason their coach and their philosophy is often run the ball too much. And while I feel like that's more the case in Seattle, the same thing can be said about Houston. I think O'Brien in past years has been too run heavy with the offense, including last year. But in the same vein, I feel like he does come up with some creative things for Watson, the way that they can run it out of pistol sets. I specifically go back to the Patriot game plan they had that I thought was very impressive. And their playmakers, their players on the offense have allowed that to succeed. I just wonder without those players how that offense would succeed with lackluster talent in the same way that other great offensive minds have been able to operate. I don't quite think it would be the same. Now, they bring in David Johnson at running back to go along with Duke Johnson. I think that's a perfect combo kind of because both of the guys can run the ball and catch the ball. I think Johnson's going to be the primary workhorse, but Duke can get it done as well, especially in the receiving game. The tight ends, nothing great, but they can catch the ball, they could get open, they could play. And then receivers, I'm really intrigued. I know that Hopkins left, but I think they're a much faster offense, and I think it actually helps Watson because if Watson is great at anything, it is the deep ball. I mean, he is one of the best deep ball passers with great touch, accuracy, and arm strength to get it done. And Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks are two of the best deep ball receivers in the game, and they both have excellent speed. And Cooks is also a guy that can operate at intermediate levels in terms of a route runner. He's an underrated route runner from that regard. And I like the way that they can move around these players. Randall Cobb will sort of replace the underneath thing that DeAndre Hopkins was asked to do last year more so than ever. And then Kenny Stills is another guy that can stretch the field. He has speed. He's a deep ball guy. So I really like the way this receiver group is made up, even without DeAndre Hopkins. And David Johnson adds another element, even if he's not the old David Johnson. Offensive line's better than we think. It's better than Seattle's. But at the same thing, they'd probably be in the top 10 if it weren't for some philosophy that says old school football is a way to go when really they should be changing it. Hopefully this year, 2020, is the year that Bill O'Brien goes all in on Deshaun Watson. The Detroit Lions offense is the one in the top 10 that I think most people are going to comment, you are an absolute dummy. Why are you so high on the Lions? I get this all the time. Lions suck. Lions are a terrible franchise. Lions don't win Super Bowls. Lion. You're lying, okay? The Lions have a good offense, okay? Just look at the depth chart. I mean, they got Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford, to me, is the sixth best quarterback in the league. I think he's a top 10 quarterback in this game. I think Matthew Stafford, along with receivers like Kenny Golladay, who is a slept-on number 1 top 10 receiver in the game. I think Marvin Jones is one of the best number 2 receivers in the league. TJ Hawkinson is one of the best up-and-coming tight ends. They have a great complement of running backs that goes 3 or 4 deep with Kerryon Johnson, who's coming back from injury. They have DeAndre Swift, a rookie. Those two guys are going to be awesome for them. And I think Darrell Bevell's approach to offensive football, if you watch the Lions early last year, I was really impressed. I mean, they ran the ball well, effectively enough for Stafford to throw the ball down the field. And Stafford was super efficient in doing so, and that's really the strength of his game. He has a wicked arm, and he can put the ball in very tight windows that not many quarterbacks can put that football into. Not to mention, I think they added some depth at receiver along with Danny Amendola as a slot receiver, reliable and clutch. And I just think the Lions have a really good balance of offense. Like, I think they'll be able to run the ball. I like that they have like 3 to 4 receivers that I like. They have 2 tight ends that I think can get it done. They have a running game. They have a passing game. They have Matthew Stafford. I just feel like this Lions offense is one of the most well-rounded in the sport. Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury. This offense is one that I'm extremely excited about. And if you've been following any sort of data nerd or statistical nerd or whatever, the Cardinals are like their favorite team. And Twitter is hyping up the Cardinals a ton, social media, all over the Cardinals hype. And one is because Kyler Murray is an extremely talented quarterback and has all the tools to be MVP caliber, and I think he can be that. But then at the same time, I think people are falling in love with Kingsbury and what he's been able to do early in his career, and he's kind of looking like the next McVay, the next Shanahan. I think the thing that was really interesting about Kingsbury is we heard about the air raid, we heard about the 4 receiver sets, we heard about the passing, we heard about, get rid of the ball quick in the passing game. But it was the running game that I think impressed me the most last year, and Kenyon Drake specifically. And their ability to run the ball, I think, is something that is just going to benefit them because there are receivers now with DeAndre Hopkins there. It becomes pick your poison with the Cardinals. Do you stack the box to stop Kenyon Drake? Do you stop the passing game and the receivers? Can you match up one-on-one with all the receivers and playmakers they have? I think they're deep at receiver. They're interesting and intriguing at tight end, not proven yet. The running back, I'd like for them to have a better backup than Edmonds. I'm not sold on him yet. Maybe he's better than I think. Drake's a good starter. I think he'll have a huge year. And I love Kyler Murray. I think the O-line is okay, probably better than it was last year. But I'm just in love with the combination of scheme, receiver talent, Kyler Murray. I think that's what makes them top 10, along with their pace of play. And I just think they're going to be very difficult for defenses to stop because they're so different in the way that they approach offense. At number 8, speaking of well-rounded offenses, you have to bring up the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns offense is probably the one that is most hindered by what is the quarterback, right? What is Baker Mayfield? That's what everyone's asking. If we knew Baker Mayfield was a top 10 quarterback, or if I thought he could be that, then I'd have this offense at number 3, number 2, number 1, right? Because this offense is ridiculous. The offensive line is one of the game's best. They drafted one in the first round, who was my favorite tackle in the draft. They picked up the best right tackle in free agency in Conklin, a legitimate top 10 right tackle, maybe top 5. And already the center guards were already good, and they were already a great run blocking line. And they added one of the best run blocking right tackles in the league. And they're just going to run people over. Like Chubb, Hunt, they're just going to run, Madden halfback dive and stretch, and they'll probably do fine on offense. But it's what's going to come after the running game that I am most interested in, because I know the running game is going to be good. I know Nick Chubb's fantastic. I know Kareem Hunt is great. But what is the passing game going to be with Baker Mayfield? Are they going to be like the Vikings because Stefanski's there now? I think the scheme change will be interesting and actually help Baker because he's better on play action. I think Odell's going to explode this year. I think he's healthy. I think he's motivated. I just like the vibes going into the year for Odell. They have so much talent. I just don't know what Baker is. And that is the reason I don't have them higher. But when you look at the skill positions, it might be the best in the league. At number 7, the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers, it's Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, if he has okay talent on offense, will have a top 10 offense in the league. You can write it down. You can count it already, and specifically when it comes to the running game. Like, I don't care if the local high school running back is playing for the 49ers. Some way, somehow, the 49ers are going to run the ball effectively, efficiently, game in and game out. That's just what Kyle does, and he's probably the best play caller in the league right now. He is a strict genius right now. I think the offensive line is better with Trent Williams over Joe Staley. I honestly think that. I think Williams could come in and be the best left tackle in the game once again. I think that the tight end is the best in the game in George Kittle. The receivers, maybe a little underwhelming, especially with Deebo Samuel not there for probably the beginning of the year with the injury. Brandon Ayuk, rookie, we don't really know what he is yet. I think he'll be good because if Kyle says he's good, he might be good. And then the rest of the guys, Jalen Hurd, Trent Taylor, Kendrick Bourne, these guys, Dante Pettis, I don't know. I don't know if they're anything special, but I think they'll be able to piece them all together, put them in the right position to succeed. They can be okay. My concern is Jimmy. I was a big Jimmy guy going into last year, and obviously when he was on the Patriots, I thought he was going to be a good quarterback. And I still think he's a good quarterback, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know if he'll ever be a top 10 guy. I don't know if he'll ever be elite. I don't know if he'll be able to take this offense to the next level. I think last year what we saw from Jimmy was mostly just great scheme. And yeah, he made a few throws here and there. He's accurate. He's got a quick release. But he equally missed a number of throws. He equally made a number of mistakes, got lucky in some situations. I just need to see his development this year. If he can develop and get better, remember, it was his first year as a starter, then I think this offense can be even better than last year. But the injuries do concern me. Regression concerns me. We'll have to see. Wait and see. But the one thing I know is that Kyle Shanahan is there. And that makes me pretty positive about their chances. At number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles offense. The Eagles offense is one that I did not expect to have ranked in the top 10, if I'm being quite honest with you. But when you look at it and you grade it out and you say, Doug Peterson, he's probably like a tier 2 play caller and schemer. Carson Wentz, he's a tier 2 quarterback. But Miles Sanders has huge potential. The offensive line is probably just below elite, if not elite. Jason Peters is now there. He's playing guard though, so that's a question I don't really know. Tight end position is top notch, maybe the best in the league. The receivers are the question, and I think that's why people doubt them. But you look at how productive the offense was without any receivers, and you have to say, I think this offense is going to be great, especially if Miles Sanders can be a dynamic top 10 running back. If Ertz can be better than he was last year, maybe more into 2018 version. And Dallas Goedert's only getting better. So if Jalen Reagor can be that guy, if Deshaun Jackson can be healthy, if Alshon can just be complimentary, I think they're good. So their scheme is really good. Peterson is a great coach in terms of getting his players the football, scheming up ways to get them the ball, putting them in the right positions, and very efficient offense, making it easy on a quarterback. Wentz is a baller. I think the Eagles are kind of slept on for the type of offense that they could be in 2020. Entering the top 5, the Baltimore Ravens and the MVP, Lamar Jackson. The Ravens offense is one that I don't think strikes you at first as a top 5 offense because you look at the roster and again you say the receiver position. Who is playing receiver for them? And outside of Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, I really don't know. I could not tell you. It doesn't matter because that is not what their offense is about. And I think Marquise Brown's going to be great. I think Hollywood Brown is going to have 1,000 yards. I think he's going to break out this year. I think he's going to be a big play threat for Lamar and his number 1 guy. Mark Andrews is a top 5 tight end, so that helps. They have a plethora of running backs in the backfield to go to with different dimensions and skill sets. Their offensive line, while it lost Marshall Yonda, that's going to hurt, is still really good and overpowering, and their tackle combo is really awesome. Sure, they don't have a number 2, number 3 receiver in the traditional sense, but Lamar Jackson, what they can do, the way they scheme is next level, and that is what makes them tough to defend. It's not that they have great receivers. Like, people are just missing the point here, missing the boat. So for me, I think the Ravens are a top 5 offense because they're just so difficult to prepare for. And when you're on the field, whatever you prepare it goes out the window because you just see how quick and fast and elusive Lamar is, and you're like, I didn't prepare for that. At number 4, the Dallas Cowboys offense. Dak Prescott, get paid, buddy, because I think you're going to have a huge year this year. And your receivers, man, are the best in the league. I think the Cowboys have the best set of trio of receivers in the league. Michael Gallup is seriously being slept on as one of the best number 2s in the game. You know, Amari Cooper, I think, already is slept on. I think he's easily top 10, if not top 6 or 7. He's that dynamic. He's that quick, fast, big play threat with excellent route running ability and great chemistry with Dak. CeeDee Lamb, just the best with the ball in his hands receiver in the draft. And yeah, you know, the tight end position's maybe not what it used to be with Jason Witten in his prime, but Jarwin, I think, is better than Witten last year. So at least there's that. The offensive line, yeah, they don't have Frederick anymore, but I think they're fine. They made some additions at center in the draft. I think elsewhere they're fine on the offensive line, especially tackle where they're fantastic. Zach Martin's one of the best guards in the league. Running game is still going to be awesome, and I think the running game is going to be better, more effective, more efficient because their passing game and their receivers are going to make teams stretch out and stress out and pay attention to all these dynamic weapons on the outside that you're just going to feed Zeke and he's going to have an open gashing run. So Dak's going to feast, Zeke's going to eat, Amari's going to thrive, and they are going to put up big points. At number 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. Tom Brady, Bruce Arians, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, OJ Howard, Cameron Brate. I listed a bunch of awesome names for you. I hope you understand how much talent and potential the Bucs offense has entering 2020, because not only do you have dynamic weapons, which the Bucs already had, but you add the GOAT in there at quarterback, the smartest cerebral quarterback next to Peyton Manning in the history of football, the guy that in the clutch moments is going to come up with the big throw, the big play, the guy with the phenomenal best pocket presence of all time, the guy that protects his offensive line and makes everyone around him better, the best leader in the history of the game. He's going to make everyone better. And that's the name of the game with Tom Brady. You know, it doesn't show his incredible elusive nature in the pocket. He doesn't show his incredible arm anymore. He doesn't show in terms of the physical attributes anymore, but it's the little details that are going to make the Bucs a better offense. And maybe they don't lead the league in passing. Maybe they don't score as many points. Maybe they don't have as many fantasy points. But I promise you, that's not all that factors into being a great offense. A lot of being a great offense is just winning the game with what your offense is able to do, whether that's putting up points, putting up yards, extending drives, or time of possession and keeping the other team off the field. I think that offense and the Bucs, what they're capable of doing with their scheme versatility, with the minds meshing of Tom Moore and Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, the scheme is going to be off the charts. The running game, I think, is going to be awesome because of all the tight ends you can put on the field and how difficult it's going to be to both defend the pass from the multiple tight end formations and the running game with Ronald Jones, who I think is underrated, by the way, and Keyshawn Vaughn out of the draft. Tyler Johnson, who they got in the draft, who's super underrated. I mean, Scotty Miller, my boy. I just think the Bucs are just so explosive in every way, impossible to match up with, and so versatile that it makes them very difficult to stop. At number 2, the New Orleans Saints. I think I have the Saints above the Bucs because I know what their offensive line is. I know what Sean Payton and Drew Brees as a combo are, unlike Bruce Arians and Tom Brady. I just do. I just know it. I've seen it since 2006. I know they're going to get it done. And has there ever been a better pure offensive output combo in the history of the game? I don't know. Maybe not, right? The offensive line's fantastic, as I mentioned. They can run block at an elite level. They can pass block at an elite level. Best tackle combo in the game. They have Jared Cook at tight end, who's a B-tier tight end, very good. Not elite, but very good. You look at receiver. They added Emmanuel Sanders now, who's going to be an excellent number 2 to Michael Thomas's number 1 and could do a lot of the same things. And then you have Alvin Kamara, who's back, healthy. Latavius Murray slept on as a backup. They just have every position full. And every position, there's a playmaker. Every position, there's a guy. And I think the difference between the Saints and the Bucs as well, probably better running back play as well. So I like the Saints a lot. They have that chemistry. They add a piece in Sanders and they only got better. At number 1, you guessed it, the Chiefs. Yeah, do I need to explain this one? Tyreek Hill is fast. I don't know if you knew that. You know, Mecole Hardman, he's also fast. I don't know if you knew that. Demarcus Robinson is fast. I don't know if you knew that. Sammy Watkins is fast. Okay, Travis Kelce is excellent. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the game. Andy Reid is a top 3-4 play caller, offensive designer. The offensive line isn't spectacular. It is their weakness, but it's still really good. I mean, it's not elite, but it gets the job done. And the running back position got better with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's a mismatch nightmare. There's just not much to say about the Chiefs offense that hasn't already been said. They're the best quick score offense of all time. They are the Golden State Warriors of the NFL. That's what I can say. That's why they're number 1. Thank you guys for watching this entire video. And if you enjoyed, spike the like button and leave your rankings of every offense in the NFL going into 2020 in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Spike the like button. Peace.